At 20 years old, I was living in a fraternity house, drinking 7 days a week, trying any drugs I could get my hands on with absolutely no idea what my future would hold. Fast forward to today, at 28 years old, I run a company that does 8 figures a year with 50 employees, and these are 6 habits that I wish I knew at 20 years old. The first habit I wish I knew at 20 years old was to check my finances daily. This seems simple, but it's really the simple habits that have the biggest impact. When I was 20 years old, and even in my early 20s, I maybe had $3,000 to $7,000 to my name. I was living in a fraternity house. I was writing papers for a few $100s for my fraternity brothers, and I would just blow all of that money as the week came to the end on alcohol and going out. And because of that, I literally tried as hard as I could to avoid ever opening my bank account. Because every time I opened my bank account, there was an overdraft fee, or I would just see how little money I actually had. And so I kind of played that ostrich head in the sand game where I just ignored all of it, and I thought that by ignoring it, it would let my problem go away. What I have now realized, being at 28 years old, is that it's actually the exact opposite. The thing that you're afraid the most of, you should really bring the most attention to, so that way it is painful enough for you to make the change. And to drive that point home, my favorite autobiography of all time is Arnold Schwarzenegger's Total Recall. And when he was doing bodybuilding, everyone probably knows that almost every single bodybuilder, the number one weak point is their calves. And so what most bodybuilders would do, they would work out with huge heavy sweatpants on, and their upper body would look amazing, and no one would make fun of their calves. And Arnold said that literally every single day of the year, he would wear short shorts so that everyone would see his calves on a daily basis, including him. And that motivated him in order to get some of the best calves in the game. So when it comes to finances, think of it the exact same way. If you ignore it, then the problem is just going to compound over time. But now, even today, even though I have a family office and a finance team, I still every single morning spend anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes going through every single bank account, every single credit card charge, line by line, just to make sure I know what the cash flow is going in and out of both my company and my personal life. The second successful habit I wish I knew at 20 was to focus on the deep work, or to create time for deep work to happen. So as I started getting into entrepreneurship around 24, 25 years old, I started to understand this concept a little bit more, but I actually think I understood the concept in my 20s. I just didn't put a title on it because, like I said, I used to have a paper writing business for people. And so what I would do was people would tell me they want a paper written. I would pop an Adderall. I would go to the local library, and I would literally cut everything out, all the noise, and I would sit down for an entire 6 to 8 hour block and write a 10 to 12 page paper for somebody else in their class. And I was really successful at that. And the same thing happened later on when I was in law school and I was studying for the law school admission test. I learned how to sit down for literally days, like full 12 to 18 hours at a time, and study logic and study conditional logic and study like really deep writing. And then finally that translated over when I was running a business, and my ability to sit down for 10, 12, 14 hours at my computer with all of the windows and doors closed, like in pitch darkness, in order to get that work done. Because what I think the common theme that I realized as I progressed through my 20s that I wish I knew at 20 was that most of the most important work, the work that is literally going to move the needle forward, cannot be done in 10, 20, even 30-minute increments. Most of the stuff that is going to move the needle forward has to be done with 3, 4, 5, 8 hour blocks, because a lot of the times it might even take 1 to 2 hours just to get into the mindset or just to get started on that deep work. The third successful habit that I wish that I did when I was 20 years old was the habit of not doing drugs or alcohols. And I lived in an environment, like I said, in a fraternity house where literally it was 70 guys at Florida State, where it was just the norm to be waking up at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday and just immediately start drinking because everybody else around you was doing it. And I have another video where I kind of talk about some of the best purchases that I made in my 20s. And the first thing was a better living environment, because that had such an impact on me. I'm not blaming on anybody but myself, but because of the environment that I was in, I thought that it was just totally normal to do drugs and alcohol 7 days a week, you know? And what I ended up learning now today, where I might have 3 to 4 drinks a year at this point in my life, is that the problem with alcohol was that I was kind of avoiding or trying to get rid of the thoughts that I had of my future. Some of that deep work that we talked about earlier, like like, what am I going to do after I graduate college? Do I really want to be a lawyer? Like, am I making enough money right now? Some of the really difficult questions where instead of facing them head on, I just dove right into drugs and alcohol. And at the stage that I'm at right now, I just have no interest in alcohol or drugs. Like, sure, I'll partake every once in a while and it's fun in that instance, but I was doing it, I think back then, more as a cover up to avoid doing the deep work that I needed to do to realize what I actually wanted out of life. The fourth successful habit that I wish that I knew at 20 was to have everybody come to me. Now, before you hop out of this video because you think that I'm full of myself, I'm not saying that like have everybody serve me. What I'm saying is that I wasted a lot of time at 20 years old and in my early 20s, like doing everything that I thought that you had to do, like going to BNI meetings, going to Chamber of Commerce meetings, going to networking events, going to all these things. I would spend so much time traveling to different locations. And later on in life, what I realized is the most valuable thing that we have is time. And so what I've done now, I've been fortunate enough to build a life around me where, I optimize for my time. That's the most valuable thing that I have. Meal preps of meals that I eat every single day, they come to me. Whenever I shoot podcasts for the Ravi Bavala show, those people come to my house where we have a podcast studio set up. Whenever I'm doing meetings with team members or clients, we do it virtually on Zoom. So I just have to walk into my office over there. When I go to the gym, it's downstairs below my building here. So I pretty much optimized to where everything that I need was almost in an arm's reach to me. And that allowed me to really increase the efficiency and production of what I was doing. And that's really what you want out of life if you think about it, or at least I should say that's what I want out of life. It's not necessarily more, because I'm sure I could make more money if I just 2 times the amount of work that I was doing every single day. But what I want to do is make more with less. And that's what I was able to do when I started focusing on having things and people come to me. The fifth successful habit I wish I knew at 20 was the power of masterminding. This is important when it comes to, even in my college days, back when I was, being a young and reckless kid, I was starting to kind of hang around people where we would talk not about the past, but we would talk about the future. We'd always talk about, I was going to be this big shot, successful lawyer, and my buddy was going to run a hedge fund. And we'd always talk about what the future was going to look like. And I think that got me through some of the harder times in college where I didn't really know what I was going to end up doing, just by being around other people that knew what they were talking about. And then even after I graduated college, masterminding with some friends who were actually on the same path as me. One of them was an expert in finance. And so he got me to start investing into the S&P 500 very early on, right? Another one of my buddies was really into health and fitness, and he got me to start using a Whoop band. So I better understood how health and diet has an impact on my business side of life. And then there's at the point where I'm at now, where both we host masterminds and I join other high-level masterminds to learn how to grow my business and hire new team members and understand what's working today. And the nice thing about masterminds is it's impossible for you, and this is going to be really hitting home for some of you at 20, to know everything. And I thought that maybe I'd be able to know everything at 20 years old, and it's actually really inefficient to do it that way. Instead, you just become absolutely the best in the world at one thing. Then you have somebody else become absolutely the best in the world at that one thing. And then whenever you're like, hey, I have a question around finances or stocks or invest or fitness or any of those things, instead of me trying to spend hours and hours online, let me just go to the person who's the best in the world at that. Let me ask them that question, and they'll give me a condensed answer based on their years of experience in 30 seconds or less. And the sixth successful habit that I wish that I knew at 20 years old was the power of content creation. What I'm doing right now. If I had been creating videos twice a week like I am right now, back when I was 20 years old, and you extrapolate that over 8 years, it would be an unbelievable amount of videos that I had on the internet that would be there forever. And now you can probably see, if you follow me closely, we have multiple YouTube channels going on right now. We have a full content department that's putting out more and more content on a daily basis. It's because the power of content took me a while to understand how powerful it actually was, the power of attention. And if I knew that back when I was 20 years old, forget investing in crypto, forget investing in stocks, forget investing in anything else. If you can buy digital real estate, which is, you can buy people's eyeballs by simply investing in yourself, a content team, or even just content equipment, and you can just have that extrapolate year after year after year, then when you get 3, 5, 8, 10 years into the future, you'll have so much attention that no matter what you want to do, it'll be easy to monetize. And that's actually what you see out there, like Mr. Beast and some of these other people that focus on acquiring the attention first, and then they had so much attention, millions and millions of people that love and adore them, that then when they come out with something that they could arguably know not a lot about, for example, Mr. Beast, I think he has a burger chain. I don't think he's a burger expert, but because he knew he had so much attention, he could then go back to that mastermind, find someone who was a burger chain expert, and then merge those two things together and create a multiple 8, if not 9-figure business right off the bat.